Hello and welcome to today's class. This is What a Catch and it's by our talented Wendy Maisie. So she has a second page as well, this one here. You have this beautiful stencil in your kit. Stay with me and I will do the class along with you. So here we have our 2 pages. I'll just pop this one aside. Hopefully you've all got your kits. This is what the kit looks like. So I'll just run through that with you, make sure that we've got everything that we need. You've got your photographs of the 2 layouts, plus the photograph sizes to use, which is a 6x4 photograph. She has used a vertical photo, but I'm going to use a horizontal, so of course you can change that to suit yourself. The kit also includes a 6x12 beach umbrellas, a 6x12 surface paper, an artesian pool cardstock, and a seawater cardstock. So you've got your 2 big blue ones, and then you've got your 2 half sheets. There's also some Dusty Attic chipboards in here, which are our titles. So your title can be anything you like. Wendy has called hers What a Catch, and the other one is Loving the Sea, but obviously you can do whatever you like. So you've got the full set there. You've also got a stencil of your own, so that's to create the background. We can use that with inks or texture paste. So today I'm going to show you how to colour some texture paste to use that with. We also have some die cuts. I'm not sure if you'll have those pieces in your kit, but little netting die cuts that ladies have cut for you. Oh, there's some little teeny tiny fish in there as well. Some coral, a little bit of string, and then these netting pieces. So these ones you're just going to need to pop out all of those little bits and either throw them away or keep them aside. So that's all our bits and pieces. Let's put that aside for the moment and grab our tools. So you'll need a glue pen, you'll need some double-sided tape. I've also got my Zots and some magic mount just in case you'll need that. You need a black pen. You'll also need a quick dry liquid glue. I'm going to be using my glitter glue, which I have put into a little container here. And you will need some scissors, a trimmer, and a palette knife, a ruler and a blade. You could use a craft sheet, something like this, to mix your texture paste on. So this is texture paste and this is gesso. I'm going to use an old palette though, so I'm just going to use this palette to mix mine on. And then a Wink of Stella. Now I've also got this in silver, but this is the clear one, so we'll be using the clear one today. I might show you how to use the silver one as well. And maybe you might want a heat gun. So this is my heat gun. You can just let that dry naturally if you want to. And then the last thing you're going to need is some distress ink. So let's just put this all aside. So with your distress ink, you'll need some kind of brown ink to do your colouring for your netting. You can use gathered twigs or brush corduroy. You're also going to need a green ink of some kind to do your titling. So you can see here we've got gesso and then we've got a green ink, and the edges of this have got some green ink on it as well. So the colour that Wendy has used is cracked pistachio, but she's used it in a distress ink, and this one is an oxide. So I have it in the oxide, but if you don't have cracked pistachio, there's a whole bunch of other colours that are going to work. Any blues, any greens. Stormy Sky, Shabby Shutters, Evergreen Bough, Broken China, Peacock Feathers, Weathered Wood, whatever you like to make it work. So choose your colour and away you go. I'm going to choose Evergreen Bough, I think, and Gathered Twigs. The other way of colouring your texture paste is using the Distress Ink refill. So we will use the Gathered Twigs as an ink pad, or you could also use it as a refill, and that will be a good way to colour it. You'll get a darker colour if you use your refill. So what you would do is you would take your ink pad and you would use, I can't really put that on there, can I? You would use your ink pad onto a bit of plastic or a bit of paper. Let's use the back of this and I'll show you. So we put a little bit of ink on here. It's going to be hard to see because it's not white. And then pop your texture paste on top. And then mix in your brown with it. So you can see that's mixing. Oh, it's a bit hard to see on my, but it's mixing in with the brown colour that's underneath there. So the other way to do it is to pop a little bit of Distress ink into a palette or an ice cream lid or whatever it is you've got there, and then just to pop a drop or two of the refill colour onto it. And it's quite a strong colour when you do it with the refill ink like that. Put as much as you'd like in to make it whatever colour it is you'd like it to be. Just make sure when you go to pick up more of your modelling paste that you've got a clean knife to go in so that you're not leaving colour behind. Just take a little bit more. That colour's a little bit too strong for what I want. And I'm actually going to leave it a little bit motley so it's not perfect colour, so that when it goes on it's not quite so perfect. So mix that up. Flip back on that. This one. And we're ready to go. So cut the strip off of your artisan pulled blue paper so that you have a 12 by 12, and then use your stencil to place it on your layout and then add some paste through that. I want to leave about, I don't know, maybe about an inch around. Try not to let it get forced underneath the template. I've got some dodgy bits of texture paste there. And make sure you've got enough texture paste made up in the colour that you want, because you don't really want to be running out and then having to find or make another colour exactly the same. I'm not worrying too much about there because I know my photograph's going to be there. And lift it off. Then you can layer that again. You can do it on a different angle if you want, or you can just repeat it. I might, should we? Yeah, maybe. Nah, I'll just repeat it. No. Okay. Not too worried about the little bits that I'm missing. Doesn't have to be completely perfect. This texture paste is great. It's a Liquitex texture paste. It's really quite thick, so it doesn't get forced underneath, so you get a really nice, clean, crisp look. Maybe just go back this way. I can hear Mr. Whippy outside. There we go. So wiping off the excess, put that back into our pan, and there we go. I think that's good enough. Now that you can leave aside to dry, or you can force dry it with the heat gun. And if you are going to do the second page, probably a good idea to do it now. So the second page is cream, this one here, and it has these same stencils on the outside edge. I might come a little bit closer to the edge this time, and I might just do it more on the outside edge, because I don't have a great lot left. There, and come around here. So this looks more like a border rather than a full piece of netting. If you don't scrape it off the top, you'll end up with it being very, very thick, which you might love, but it will take a little bit longer to dry. So I tend to scrape off the top. Also saves the texture paste. Probably don't need it in that corner. Maybe there. Missed a little bit there. That's cool. I've just a tiny little scraping left. Scrape it out. Pop it down the side. Now you can see that it's not coming out quite so well. The reason it's not coming out quite so well down here is because it has started to dry and the little gaps are starting to get filled in with texture paste. So it's not giving me as perfect a look as it first did. So that's what will happen when you take a little while to do it. It will actually dry on the stencil. So I tell you now, go dry. Sorry, no. Stop the video and go and wash your template. This is texture paste, it'll dry like cement. So I'm going to go stop this and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Okay, so I'm back, clean, and I have cleaned my stencil as well. It takes a little bit to get it clean, so I pop it in the bottom of my sink and rub it with a nail brush and turn it over and rub it again with a nail brush, and you still find sometimes there's little bits on it, but that will dry quite hard, so it's a good idea to wash it. And it's best to wash it flat because of all those very little intricate pieces. I did want to show you one other way of using it though. So if you don't have the texture paste, or perhaps you had gesso or your texture paste wasn't this Liquitex modelling paste, it might have been one that was a little bit more fluid and it may have forced underneath your stencil. So if it forced underneath your stencil, it would mean that it won't give you a crisp, this is dry already, wouldn't give you a crisp kind of an image. So if that has happened, what you can do is you can use your stencil and you can use an ink colour. So let's go with maybe a brown. I'll just show you on this scrap. What is that? Maybe good old, well, let's use the same colour that we used. Gathered Twigs, brown down here. So I keep all my daubers in a dauber container. They're all labelled so that I make sure that I use the same colour because they actually look quite similar. You could have just one for each, but this is just a way of doing it. So what you can then do is you can then use your stencil and rub very gently over the top, and you will be left with your design underneath. So that's one way of being able to have the stencil be useful even if you don't have the texture paste on you. Oh, it's a bit hard to line it back up again. So the harder you, this one doesn't have much colour in it. You don't want to be rubbing too hard because you don't want to break the stencil. But you can get a reasonably good image doing that. The other way is, of course, using a spray, or there's lots of other ways to use stencils, but the stencil is very useful. So back to our layout. Okay, so the paper that you want to work with next is the one that has the fish on the bottom and the sand and the surfers on the back. So cut off your descriptive strip. We're going to keep those little fishies for later. Go. These little fish here, kind of cute. And then we're going to use this paper and we're going to tear it towards you to get a white edge. And what you would like is a sloping look. So we want it to start a little bit higher and come down a little bit lower there. So to do that, we'll keep the left hand side about 4 3/4 of an inch, and then we're going to tear down to around about 4 inches. So we'll tear this down. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, down to about there. There we go. And by tearing towards me, keeping the piece I want to keep in my left hand and tearing towards me with my right, I've got this white edge on the piece that I want to keep. We're going to use this one on the second page, so you don't really need that one for the moment. We'll use it on the second. And this one's going to be put onto the bottom of our layout. We need to take about 1/4 of an inch off of that. So I'm just going to use my trimmer, bring this over. You possibly can't see the bottom of my trimmer here because I have my light in the way, but I'm going to cut that to 11 3/4. So just taking 1/4 of an inch off that one. But when it goes onto the background, like so, we will have a little bit of a border all the way around. The next piece of paper you want is the basil cardstock, and we want to cut a 4 3/4 by 6.5 inches. So we'll do our 4 3/4 first. 4 3/4 by 6.5 inches. Wrong. Sorry, that wasn't 4 3/4. That was 4 1/4. 4 1/4. Tricky. 4 1/4 by 6. And so she's asked us to cut 1/4 of an inch off of our photograph to fit. I am not going to do that. I'm going to make mine 6 1/4. So that it fits it just that little bit bigger. I can always cut that down later if I decide that I need more on it another time. Sorry, I think I left you hanging there. Okay, this is the next piece of paper that we need, which is the beach umbrella paper, and that is to be cut to 4 3/4 by 6.5. I might do my 6.5 first. Just going to check and make sure that that will still work because I've made mine a bit bigger. Mine is a little bit bigger. I might do mine 7 just to be sure. So I've done mine 5 by 7, just slightly different to the original instructions. Feel free to change them if you wish, because I'm naughty and I do that too, but I really like that background colour, so I wanted to see a little bit more of it. So this piece is now going to have your edges distressed on that one, and you can put the two of them together. So you can use a little bit of Magic Mount in between them if you like, and we're going to set that one aside for later. So just using an edge distresser, rough up the edges of this paper. You can leave it raw like this, or you can ink it. Quite like the raw look on this one because it's showing the white through, which is nice for the beach. And I like mine quite ruffled. I want it to look very deliberate, not just that I didn't use a sharp cutter. If you don't have one of these, you could use the edges of scissors, or you could use the edge of your nail, whatever you've got, or you could just leave it. I might also do the edges of the blue. Okay, and you can lay a Magic Mount in between whichever layer you want. I might put this one directly onto this one so that it's got a nice surface for my photograph to sit on. There. And then put a layer of Magic Mount in between those ones there. So let's just take a bit of this. Hope I'm not going too fast for you. Feel free to stop the video, or if you're sick of seeing me, just fast forward to the end. That one there can go in the middle of this one now. There. Oh, I should have put a bit in the middle there. Gives that a bit of space there. Okay, so pop that one aside. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is get our chipboard letters and choose the title that you want, and just give it a real quick coat of gesso before you do that, and then we can layer a little bit of the colour, maybe this cracked pistachio on the bottom layer of it. So I'm going to figure out what title I want, pop them out and give them a quick coat of gesso, and then I'll come back and show you how to do the graduated part of the Distress Oxide side. Okay, so I've gessoed the pieces that I need. That's my leftover gesso, and I don't know if you can tell what title I've picked for today, but to get your little titles out, you just want to click them out with a craft knife. So just go and pop them all out, and then we will use our oxide ink, whatever colour you want, just to colour the bottom half of that. So just gently use a dauber and colour the bottom half of each of your letters in green or blue or whatever you like to do. I'll come back when that's all done. I'm actually liking that a lot, so what I've decided to do is to put some peacock feathers just on the very bottom, so we've got like a bit of a 3 colour gradient. I think that'll work out really nice. It's a bit hard for you to see, but it has the 3 colours: peacock feathers, cracked pistachio, and then this is just gesso. So that's kind of cool. You could just use one colour, or you could outline it, but yeah. So once we've got all our little pieces out, so you've taken all the little bits out of the middle of the die cuts, arrange them how you would like them and your letters. You've also got these little fish, and there's also these little fish, remember, here, so we may or may not want those. That's up to you whether you want them or not. This is the middle part of the shell. You might like that as well. I'm not going to worry about putting that one on. The other thing that you might like to do is to use the seahorse. Now the seahorse is actually on the other page, but I've decided I'm only going to do one page, so I would like this seahorse to sit on here. So I've given him a little bit of a coat with gesso. To do that nice and evenly, use a foam applicator, something like what you would use for your distress ink, and just do a little bit of colour on it. Try not to get it all gooping down the side and inside the cutouts, like inside the eye and around the side there, so it doesn't look quite so untidy. And you can do that nicely with a foam applicator. If you use a brush, sometimes if you use, say, a brush like this, when you go to wipe it on, you end up with goop bits down the side. So I find that using a foam applicator is generally a little bit easier. So once you've done that, then you can use your distress oxides, or you can use just normal distress ink if you want to. I'm going to use the same colours that we used before. Maybe even I might like to use, no, I'm going to use the peacock feathers for the edge, and I might use a little bit of pink. So maybe let's go with, what's this one? I think maybe go with some of this one. So on the outside, I'm going to use a little bit of the peacock feathers, and I'm not even going to dip it in there. There's enough on the applicator already. So just gently wiping out from those outside edges there to give me a little bit of colour. Right to the top of his head, and then down that section, a little bit down here as well. I've accidentally got it on the bottom part of that tail, but that's okay. There we go, and now we're going to use a little bit of the pink on the other side. And I haven't even picked up the colour, I'm just using what's already on the applicator. There's a bit of a dodgy bit hanging off that. Let's just get that off. That looks quite cool. So can we see him a little bit better? Maybe not. I don't know if this camera focuses. Anyway, you get the general idea. So that looks quite cute. Now you could go along with your black marker and you could add some markings and just tie in where these sections of his scales might be at the back, or you could leave him as is. I'm going to leave him for the moment until he's dry, and then I'll come back. So to layer all this up, start with this bottom piece. This needs to be stuck on the very base of your layer, about 1/8 of an inch up from the bottom and from the sides. And I have been using the liquid glue, and I'm finding that it's still a little bit bumpy for my liking. I don't like the way it sort of leaves a bit of a ridge when it dries. So that's okay for smaller things. But I think for the larger things, like cards and things like that, you're better off to use your double-sided tape because it does dry much flatter. Okay, so stick this one in place. You're going to eyeball it so that it's the same amount of blue showing on the bottom here. Stick that on. Then this one's going to go on here. Just work out where you want your pieces to go as to how far you want it up from the bottom of the page, or how far you want it across from the left hand side or the right hand side, as it might be. So I'm going to layer that one under there. This one's cut out of a little bit darker, so that's going to go a bit lower. That might go a bit higher. All these little fishies as well. Got all sorts that we can play with. We also have a little tag, And this tag can be a really nice little journaling spot. So I obviously don't want to cover up all of my embellishments that are underneath there. So I'm going to position where I want to put the tag and then work out with my embellishments. Actually, I might even be able to cut this and have a bit coming out that side and a bit coming out there, so that you're not wasting anything that's underneath your where your tag's going to go. So that little piece can go there. This one's pretty cute. Alright, I might layer that one under there. Maybe I'm going to put it over here. Don't know. And then of course the seahorse, who's going to go over all of them. Might just layer him up there. So that's roughly where everything's going to go. Work out whether you want your photo straight or whether you want your photo on an angle, and then where your title's going to fit. So you probably can't figure out what I want to say with that title, but okay. So now it's just a matter of sticking it all down. This is our little piece of leftover. This is the same colour as your sand down the bottom here, so you could use either side of that. And this is just to add a little bit of embellishments onto this side. If I shuffle that across a little bit more, we'll be able to see this netting here. And then I really just need two little sections cut to make it look like a tag. It doesn't actually have to be a tag. So I'm just going to cut that at about an inch and a half, maybe. Just an inch will do. An inch there. Another inch there. And then I'm just going to take the tops off of those, just the corners, one there. Now I want to get the exact same on the other side, so the way to do that is to use the piece that you've cut off and to put that on. Okay, so that you have two pieces the same. And then we want to cut some holes in the end of that. You don't really have to, but I think I will. Pop a couple of little holes in there. Whilst I'm at it, I should probably even put a couple of little eyelets in there. And they're going to be sitting out on the other side of my photograph here. So I'll just pop these in. One. And two. Oh, that one didn't set properly. There we go. Two. So they can now poke out the side here. That's kind of cute. In fact, oops, out the side there. In fact, I don't think I even need two. One will do me because mine's quite big. So just one will do. Poking out that side there. Not sure what I will do with it. Oh, actually, let's just stick it on there, seeing as I've got it. Is there a hole in that? Make sure there's a hole here big enough. And then that one can get stuck straight on top of the other one. Like so. And then we're just going to use a little bit of this string that we've got here, maybe give it about, I don't know, 3 layers maybe. And then pop it through here I do have an eyelet on this, but you obviously don't have an eyelet in your kit. Maybe you might have one, or just put it through the hole that's already in the shipping tag. I just figured, seeing as I'd cut it and I had it left over, I may as well use it. So there's that hanging out, and then we'll cut these at different lengths. Cute. And there's a little bit of this left over as well. You might want to just wind that up and pop it underneath, just for a little bit of interest down here. Okay, so now I need to work out exactly where I'm going to put everything and sit it all down. I'm going to be using my liquid glue to stick it all down. And to start with is my title. So I don't know if you figured that out yet. Probably sitting there staring at that going, what on earth is she trying to say here? So we've got a bit of a play on words here, so it's not spelled correctly, obviously. Sees. Sees the day. All right, I'll come back when everything's stuck down and share any other hints and tips. I might have one about the glitter, so I'll come back and do that glittering part of it with you. Okay, so now we've got that last little bit on. Hopefully everything's going to stay. Yeah, so we've positioned everything where I'd like it to be. I've done a little bit of journaling down the bottom here on the tag, added a couple of little fishies. I didn't end up using these ones, which were taken from the descriptive strip, but you could add them into the netting here, which is what Wendy has done here, and it looks really quite cute. She's also put her netting in on a little bit of an angle so that it's given a little bit more shape. I didn't do that. I stuck mine down flat, but hers looks so much better with it a little bit crumpled up. So crumple up your netting when you put it on. And she's got a couple of different journaling spots. One's got the date and this has got the time. Sorry, not the time, the place. And she has distressed the edges of hers as well and added some more of that cracked pistachio ink, which is also, I'm noting, what she has done on her little bit of die cuts, and I failed to do that as well. So what you could do if you wanted to come back and do it is just lift up the die cuts that you missed and add your cracked pistachio or whatever it is, peacock feathers or whatever it was that you used, and put that on the edges of those, and the same on the edges of your tags. I got a little bit carried away and didn't actually do those pieces. So you can come back if you protect it with something else, and then you can add your little bit of extra ink. And I always think it looks nicer when it ties in better to have the ink colours matching in. So that's pretty much done. You can also layer a little bit of glitter onto it. This product is called Wink of Stella, and it comes in a brush. When you first buy it, you have to undo it and take the little black piece out of here, but this one is has already been undone. It's going to be a little bit hard to see because I'm noting with the light that I'm looking at, it's a little bit hard for you to see the glitter side of it. But there's also stickles that you could use. I would put a clear stickles on though. I wouldn't go with one that's too coloured. I would try and put a clear one on, but this Wink of Stella, all it does is it adds a hint of glitter. It's not super glittery, it's just a hint of glitter, which is helpful when you're putting it on, that you don't really get it all over the edges and you don't get it everywhere. Normally with glitters it's a bit of a problem, but this one, if you get a little bit over the edge, it's not going to really matter because it's only just a little hint of the glitter. I might put it on those little fishies as well. They kind of look like sharks circling there. A bit on this one as well, so you give it a little bit of a squeeze and it comes out, and I am well aware that you can't see that very well. I'm also going to add a little bit to my edges now, because this is Distress Oxide. It will possibly still react with it. I don't know if you can see it, but it's lifting up a little bit of that blue ink that I've put on, and when I come back again it's giving a little bit of marks, so I'm getting marks in my in my scales on the side of the seahorse there, so that kind of looks a bit cool too. Can you see? Maybe not if I shine, maybe not so much. But I'm going to pop a little bit on the bottoms of these as well and have fun with that. So I think that's the end of the layout. Thank you very much for staying with me. I hope you've had fun and you enjoy doing the second page as well. So I'll come back to the second page, and this is the second page that Wendy has done. Gorgeous. And there you have it. That's today's class all finished from Wendy's beautiful What a Catch layout. And that's the end of our class. See you next time. Bye.